I'm so glad you're watching this video because this is an easy worksheet to complete and think you did well and not do well. So let's talk about the common mistakes that I see on this worksheet sometimes. Remember that the law of detachment says that when the if part of a statement comes true, then we can conclude the then comes true. So for all of these that had conclusions, like Jake ate cake and Rita has friends and Peter ran, those all had the if part of a statement coming true. But the two that were no conclusion were number 3 and number 5, and let's check to see where that went wrong. Sam was not late, so that wasn't the if part of that statement. So we don't get to make a conclusion unless the if part comes true. And the last one, Lily made cookies, there's another one, Lily made cookies. Only when the if part comes true do we make a conclusion. Now we're moving on to the law of syllogism. Remember that syllogism is where we find two of those if-then statements that connect. And so this first one, Pat needed to exercise. There was an if-then statement that said, if exercise, then running. So then we looked for another statement that said, if running. And it said, if a person runs, then a person is not late. So we're trying to find those two if-then statements that connect together in the middle. So then the conclusion we make is that if Pat exercised, then Pat is not late. Same thing for these other two. So one more time, syllogism has that common link in the middle, and we skip from the original if to the final then. That's using the law of syllogism. Now number 9, we were supposed to try to find the chain reaction, kind of like the commercial from the video. So it starts with, if there's a fire. If there's a fire, then senses high levels of smoke and heat. If high levels of smoke and heat, then sets off the fire alarm. If sets off the fire alarm, then concludes there's a fire. If concludes there's a fire, then locates the fire. If locates the fire, then extinguishes the fire. And so you could have put those in order by giving me the numbers, just numbering those in order. Or you could have, like you see right here, put the letters in order. But the final conclusion came from that middle statement, if locates the fire, then extinguishes the fire. That's our final conclusion using syllogism. In number 10, the if-then statement was, if you don't do chores, then you don't get video games. It said that Jeff does not play video games. That does not mean that the if part of that statement came true, right? The only time we can make a conclusion is if we know the if comes true. So we should not have made a conclusion, and the conclusion should not have been that he did not do his chores on Saturday morning. We actually can't tell from this. And on these last 4, I just looked for some key words that would tell us whether we were looking for a pattern of reasoning or more so laws and if-then statements for deductive reasoning. Number 11, it said all the other brands that Josh knows of. So that's his pattern of experience, which made that inductive. This one was just talking about Walt is taller than Pete. Pete is taller than Natalie. So those are just facts. And so if it's just the facts, not just a pattern that you see, that's deductive reasoning. Here's another inductive. We've seen a pattern over the last 3 Wednesdays. And on number 14, I see just a straight up if-then statement, and it's talking about the laws in Nevada, so that's a deductive reasoning.